Welcome back. I'm here again with Rob Jolles, best-selling author and keynote speaker, and we're giving you a series on how to create amazing online and virtual presentations. This particular video is all about the differences between online and in-person presentations and how to keep people engaged. So Rob, tell me, I've heard a lot of people say that it's a very different world doing a virtual or in-person presentation. So what's your take on that overall?
Well, I don't think we should be listening to them quite so much. Believe me, back in March, I was making all sorts of changes, and then I realized, now wait a second, why am I making so many of these changes? You and I are standing. Don't we normally stand if there was an audience here? Yeah. You and I are wearing a sports jacket. Don't we normally do that when we... So when we start ticking down the line and we say, well, I'm not going to be in a chair, I'm going to be mobile, I'm going to be engaged and enthusiastic, all of a sudden, yes, there's some differences and we'll cover them, but let's not be intimidated by all the big differences. Let's pretend that we are in front of the room. I even tell groups when I start, normally I wear a jacket when I start and then I take it off. So I'm going to now take my jacket off. We can soften it up a little bit. I think the biggest challenge is holding their interest, because I have kind of a rule of thumb that I've come up with, which is online delivery and training feels about double the length of live. Meaning, if we did an hour live, it would feel like 2 hours if we did it online. 2 feels like 4. So we got to get on our horse, and I think the biggest difference is sustaining the interest, holding on to people.
So what can we do to make it not feel like it's hours, right? What can we do to make that time feel like it's more natural and more like an in-person presentation?
I have that solved. We have an honor system. We tell people don't look at their email. Just kidding, because that isn't going to work. We can ask them, but that's awfully tempting on the other side. So we just have to be a lot more interesting than we used to be. For instance, one of the things that I really like are participating activities. Anything that we can do. And on most of the platforms, I'm pretty often using Zoom, but on most of the platforms, we have breakout rooms. We have sharing of screens. Anything that we can do to get those people to participate. Polls. I didn't give a poll in the last 15 years. I don't go a day without a poll somewhere, because what it does is it keeps bringing people back to the screen, and they're watching and they're participating, and they're going to drift a little bit before they get too far away. I'm going to have them put something in the chat box. Before they get too far away, I'm going to show them a video. Before they get too far away, I'm going to put them in a breakout room. But I think we got to get them to participate. That's the key. And of course, we've got some other ideas too, but let's not run through this stop sign. Got to get them to participate.
That's great. And participation doesn't have to be just electronic. So one of the things that I do actually with teams that I work with is sometimes I'll get them up and literally have them dancing in a meeting. And I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, you know what, it's a little risky, but I'm going to try it. And I played a music video, and they couldn't even see the music video. I just danced on screen, and I had energy, and everybody loved it. You could see the smiles come on their faces, and the energy came up, and they were engaged. And people actually said that, look, this webinar is going to help change my life. So that felt good, but it all started because I got up and I acted like I was in a real presentation, which I think is really your point. Pretend it's real. Don't pretend it is real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would really applaud what you're doing. And I need you to hear that, because the temptation, the instinct is we have to make all sorts of changes. But in reality, if you dance, dance. I'm not much of a dancer myself, but this guy apparently is. So dance, have fun. Another thing that I like to do when I'm live is I use a lot of personalization concepts. In other words, this could be Jeremy's jig, you know what I mean? This could be Rob's runabout. I used to have Rob's rules that I used to use, but I hadn't used them in a while. Now I'm bringing them back. I'm dusting them off. I'm going back into as many ideas as I can, because folks, it's not one idea, it's 10 ideas. We got to keep, we're gonna, every time we give a great idea, we're going to hold them for another 4.5 minutes or so. And then we got to go. So personalization, dancing, movement, All these things really help, but I do like the personalization concepts. Keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, and this, one of the things is we can't let the idea of virtual hold us back. That's one thing that I preach that to everybody in life is, maybe preach is the wrong word, but I help people understand that, if you want something, you got to set your goals and you got to go get it. And so the fact that we're behind a camera for whatever reason shouldn't be a limitation. We should think about how do we turn that into an advantage and how do we make it, how do we use that to the best of our ability and how do we stand out from other folks? So Rob, so tell me a little bit about, you talked about keeping people engaged, and I know one of the things you've talked about is stories. Right. So if you're going to tell a story on camera, is there anything different that from an in-person conversation or any presentation, what should you try to do?
Well, what we're trying to do right here, which is let's not get too long into our stories. I used to be a nice long storyteller, and I was good at it. Now I'm a fast storyteller. I really have, I have what I call a communication shot clock. In basketball, they have a shot clock. In football, they have a play clock. We need a play clock, a communication shot clock. I think 60 seconds and under is good, but I'm going to recommend two things. One, shorten up the stories, and two, do something I call landing a story, which is let's pretend we didn't hold everybody's attention for the whole story. Landing it means not only telling the story, but finish it by saying, and Jeremy, I tell you that story, because that's the way we use anecdotal stories when we're presenting. In other words, pull them back, give them the moral of the story. Don't assume everybody's hanging on every word. But anecdotal stories is another one of those every 4.5 minutes something. And there's some great stories out there. We should be doing those live anyway, but here they're gold.
Yeah. And it's great that you said that you want to keep it short and keep it under 60 seconds. I actually try to go even shorter. And one of the ways that I found to actually do that is to not tell all the details of the story, just tell the point of the story. I went to a client's place and I had a conversation and this happened. Very short, just hit the high level stuff. If you can say it in fewer words, use fewer words.
Yeah, I actually was just working with a client last week who sent me the transcripts of a story they were telling because I heard it live and I said, ooh, too long, and they just didn't know how to trim it. And it was the same thing. It was probably a wonderful story live. They had a sandwich, they were drinking a soda, lots of interesting things. They got there, they met the client, and this is what happened. That's what that story looked like when I got done with it. But the fact is, it told well, and it was fine. But they didn't just tell it. They put in there, and it doesn't have to be these exact words, but the reason why I mentioned that is because. And that's that landing of the story. So it's sort of two parts. Shorten, trim, as you say, and then land it.
I love that you just told a story in order to demonstrate how to tell a story. That's fantastic. So Rob, what else do we have to think about keeping people engaged?
I think one of the ones that we use, and again, it works live and it works online and virtual as well, is mobility. One thing we're not doing right now, and believe me, it's not easy. I am welded to this floor, but I've got a camera that's nice, that's fixed. But if it wasn't, you would see me moving around. Mobility is a terrific way to keep people interested. And that's what I mean in terms of get rid of the chair, get moving, and either clip it on like you see or get that arm to move with you, but move a little bit, move a little bit. One other thing, it's not exactly mobility, but we can move documents online, so we can put them right in that chat area. I could send you a document before the program begins, and I do, but I hold certain documents, and I say, now, go to your chat area, I'll send you an equipment list. Go to your chat area, I'll show you the 5 ways to do bang. I'm doing that again because I call it mental mobility. I'm moving them mentally around a little bit. They're not getting up, but they are downloading and fixing and looking and chatting. Is it over there? And we've got a conversation going because live, what do we want? The more an audience talks, the more they like the presenter. Online, we got them all muted. But the more they get into the chat area, the more they hit the poll, that's their way of talking. So let's get them engaged that way as well.
Right. Just because they don't have a voice doesn't mean they can't interact. And that's really good to think about it that way.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing, and it works here well too. I could put a video together, and I think it would be pretty good. But this is better. And you know why? Because there's 2 of us. And so why sometimes we can virtually bring in another person, a guest speaker, somebody else. I know your voices are wonderful, but after a while, as I said, remember that 2-to-1 deal in terms of how online feels. If I can get Jeremy to give me 5 minutes of bang, all of a sudden he's on screen, there he goes. Whoop, we just grabbed another 4.5 minutes, 4.5 minutes. There's a battle going on, folks, and it is holding on to that audience. I don't know about you, but I'm not letting them go.
All right, so Rob, tell me a little bit about emotion, because I know emotion gets people captivated. So how do we use emotion to keep people engaged?
Well, first of all, I think it's probably the #1 interest-sustaining idea. And so right now, I'll give you my best one, and then I'd love to hear what yours are. So I'm going to tell you, for me, in terms of emotion, I call it the great equalizers. Forget everything else in a presentation. Energy and enthusiasm, the great equalizers. It's okay to stumble. It's okay for the mic to maybe not work so well. Maybe you pulled the cable out. Uh-oh, the camera froze. People will forgive just about anything, but they won't forgive a lack of energy and enthusiasm, and they shouldn't forgive it either. And the great part about that, Jeremy, is it's one of the few things that's 100% in our control. So to me, that's the best idea I've got. I'll give you a list of 20 ideas of sustaining interest, but boy, would I love to hear yours.
Yeah, and that great points again. I mean, I say that over and over, but it's really fantastic. But we could go on and on about ways to keep emotion. But from the viewers, like Rob said, we really love to hear about what you're interested in. Maybe we'll drop some new videos, but we'll also drop a list of things that you can do in the description below to get some more stuff so that we can get on to the next content. But in the meantime, you can always check Rob out at his website.
JOLLES.com.
All right, and I'll drop my contact information in the description as well. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and ring that little bell to make sure you're getting all the latest notifications. And until next time, thanks for watching.